Hi y'all. Today's Miss Fix It is about refinishing tables. Just a quick look at some of the tables I've done in the past year. I don't always use a gel stain or a regular table stain. Sometimes I use paint, but today's Miss Fix It is about how to use gel stain. My first table that I refinished was my dining room table. I loved the design of the wood, and so I wanted to refinish it instead of selling it or donating it and getting something new. I did not know what I was doing at the time. It was a brand new project, so I have a lot of lessons learned. So the first thing I did was sand it down. So when you're choosing your sanders, if you need to take off more than one layer of a polyacrylic or polyurethane top, and you know that you need to, or you have some deep scratches, you're going to want to use a belt sander or a mouse sander, and using probably, I'd start with 80 grit and then maybe go down to 40 grit if you have to. Just keep in mind that you will be removing a lot of dust, so make sure that you do this outside or in a really well ventilated garage, but prepare for dust to be everywhere. So I started with my mouse sander, started with 80. I ended up going down to 40 because I have a very difficult time getting off the top finish, except for the legs. The legs were different. I started with 120, and that seemed to be plenty of grit to get the old stain off. So it took me several hours using a mouse sander to get off the top layer. And then I changed to an orbital sander. Now, an orbital sander is used for softer wood. I use it when I'm doing in-between coats because it is a softer sander, although you can kick it up really high. So anyways, I started my orbital sander somewhere around 240 grit, and then I worked my way up. So once I got to about, I guess, 330 or what is it, 320 grit, the table was beautifully smooth. So then I then took the tabletop outdoors, cleaned it off with just a soft cloth and water. I cleaned it several times because you don't want to leave any dust on top, any residue of any kind, because it will become part of your next layer, and then you'll have to sand it all back down in order to get rid of whatever dust has accumulated on top of your table. The other thing to keep in mind is if you're doing this outdoors, debris will fall on your table. So it's a good idea to maybe do a makeshift tent, or they sell spray paint tents if your table is small enough to fit in one. I just risked it and did it outdoors, and I got lucky. So it's up to you whether or not you want to risk it. I highly suggest doing some kind of a tent if the table's really big and you think it's going to take you more than a day's work of staining, or you could pull it outside your garage and then just pull it in after you've applied the stain if you have someone to help you carry it. Anyways, so I chose a gel stain because I wanted something that was easy to use, easy to clean up, and this one was water-based. I'm going to include the link in my comment section because the gel stain turned out absolutely beautiful. So you're going to want to use a sponge brush, which I'll also include a link to, or I use these fabric-like sponges to apply the stain, and they worked really, really well. So I end up having quite a few of those on hand just for other projects because I really liked the fact that it didn't leave lines like sometimes brushes do. So I applied my first coat of gel stain. I let it dry. When you go back, you'll notice that your table feels gritty. So you're going to want to sand that back down using a high number of grit sandpaper. So probably 600 would be a good number. You can use your orbital sander or very low on your mouse if you only have one sander. That's fine. Or hand sand it, but that's a lot of work. I ended up putting 6 layers of gel stain. So I bought a little tiny pint and I did just fine with that. So I would probably get a half quart if you're doing a really big table or if you want more depth and color. So every coat of stain I applied, I lightly sanded. And I just kept following that until it got the depth of color that I wanted, but I still wanted a nice sheen to it. So the last time when I decided I was done, then I set the table aside to dry for a few days and I moved on to the legs. And I loved the way the legs turned out. I only did 4 coats because I wanted the natural lines in the table to come through the stain. And it gave it a really unique look. So the table and the legs took me about a week working with stain and sanding. And then once that was done, I reassembled the table and I started to apply my polyacrylic. So you'll have to make a decision if you want polyurethane or polyacrylic. I used the wipe on because I thought that I would have more control than I do using it out of a can. I'm not a big fan of things that I have to dip a brush into or pour into a bowl because I usually end up pouring too much or too little, and then it just becomes a really cumbersome project when you're doing it by yourself. So I like the wipe on poly, and I use the white sponges that I included in my link to apply the polyacrylic. I ended up doing probably 6 layers of polyacrylic, and the difference between polyacrylic and polyurethane is that polyacrylic dries a little slower. It looks cloudy when you look inside, but it dries to a nice, clear, shiny finish. Now, polyurethane looks yellowy when you look inside, like an amber color, and it will dry slightly yellow. So you don't want to use polyurethane on anything that you don't want a slight yellow tint to. So you can use it on dark wood. Browns are fine. It will change the colors just slightly on the browns because it does have that amber tint to it. If you're going to use it, you may as well use oil-based, which I think is a little bit stronger than the water-based. And keep in mind that polyurethane has a horrible smell to it. So as you're using it, make sure you wear a mask. Use it outdoors. But if you use it outdoors and then you carry it inside to dry or inside your garage to dry, that smell will linger because it takes a very long time for that smell to burn off. Eventually it does. It takes about 4 to 5 days on a big project for that smell to go away. So just really keep in mind you don't want to use it inside on anything. So after I did my polyacrylic, I started using these wet, dry, like a diamond. I think they're called diamond sandpaper. And it's really, really, really fun. You would almost think that it doesn't do anything because it's almost like a soft sandpaper. And I used 2000 and I buffed it probably 4 or 5 times using these diamond sandpaper. And what it did was it really gave my table like a diamond finish. It almost looked like a crystal. When the time I was done, it was like a glass finish on my table. And then I applied my last coat of my polyacrylic. I let that dry, and the top no longer had a gritty feel to it, so I knew that I didn't need to apply anymore after that point. And then I let the whole thing sit and dry for a full week and harden before I put it back into the dining room to use it. So You can use, of course, different stains as you see fit. I'm including the link to the one that I used because I've tried other gel stains that didn't quite give me the look and feel that I was looking for. Anyways, I hope that this helps you with some ideas or projects for the future. If you have any questions, just throw them below. If you have a project that you're working on, I'd love to see it. Go ahead and throw the image and make sure you hit that subscribe so you guys can watch the next video. Have a fantastic weekend. Talk to you later.